La-di-da-di-da. Let me make sure it actually goes live for realsies. There we are. Okay, fantastic. Hello, everyone. I am Kat Udero, and welcome to Third Eye Salon, where in each and every week we take a fresh look between the veils of reality. And on this show today, we're taking a look between the veils of Amanda Hainline's experience of becoming a full-blown psychic in 30 seconds, what I would call, in short, a Kundalini awakening on steroids. But before we get there, let's say hello to our friend, psychic, conscious business coach, and the hostess with the mostest, Linda Coulter-Burge. How are you, Linda?
I'm fabulous. As always, it's bright and early. I love it. Hi, everybody. We're going to make this fast because I want as much time with Amanda as possible. You know the drill, play nice or get out. And please like, share, and subscribe. Join our Facebook group if you haven't. Thank you for your donations. Love you. Next. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, down to business. Yeah.
That was great. That was the fastest intro we've had. Yeah, we only have Amanda for an hour, so we're like, we want to get as much as we can out of this. So, so then we also have our lovely co-host Angela Anderson with us. She is an artist, a motorcycle mechanic, software engineer, channeler of oneness, basically anything she wants to be. Hello, Angela. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, guys. How are you today? As he said, I am a channel, or I am yielded in service to all that is of the Christ consciousness. So that whether that shows up as mediumship, channeling, whatever needs to be done, that's kind of how I roll. So I'm excited to hear your story, Amanda, because it parallels with a book I happen to be reading, and I know nothing is by coincidence, but it happens to parallel with the story with the book I'm reading by Barbara Handclough about astrology and the Kundalini rising. So I'm excited to kind of get into the discussion today.
Awesome. Yeah, excited as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, because, well, we'll get into it. Amanda told me in the pre-show that there's a second awakening coming through with her ascendant sign. So this is so in alignment. We're going to talk about that. All right. So before we do that, this is such a quick bio. It's so perfect for today. 15 years ago, Amanda Hainline accidentally went from a regular suburban mom to full-blown psychic in 30 seconds. To cope with the utter chaos from that experience, she worked with healers and angels to regain her sanity. Along the way, she started not only surviving, but thriving as a result of her newfound gifts, becoming an intuitive and a hands-on healer, working with clients all over the globe. And I would say empath extraordinaire. I would add that to that. So give us a thumbs up if you were excited to meet Amanda and to find out about her Kundalini awakening and how the Archangels taught her how to be a healer. So let's get right into it. So we've shared on our Facebook group, we have shared what I call the discovery video where I found Amanda on Jeff Mara's podcast. So she goes in depth about her Kundalini awakening there. So I kind of want to do a little thumbnail sketch of that because we've got so much other stuff I want to get into. So if you will let us know just, I guess, the basics of coming into that situation, unexpected of that this was going to happen, but also include that premonition, those 3 dreams you had that were going, Amanda, now.
Yeah. So as a child, I had premonition dreams off and on about disasters, usually that would happen throughout my childhood. This occurred. And that kind of came to a culmination. I was 13 when I dreamed about the Loma Prieta earthquake before it happened in 1989. And it was very traumatic for me. And I just asked the gifts to be taken away, whatever they were. It was more like a curse at that point in my life. And they stopped for a while. And then when I was pregnant with my second son, I had a series of 3 dreams that really kind of were the calling for me to get back into or enter like the healing world, but I didn't really understand what it was at the time. You know, I was pregnant, so I just chalked it up to pregnancy dreams, but it was the series where they were exactly the same, and walking into the side of a mountain in this cave. And then there was this blinding light and, you know, bugles and gongs and I am God, you know, and I woke up the first time and hairs were standing up all over me. And I thought, well, that's quite the pregnancy dream, you know? And then 2 weeks later, it repeated itself. And I went, well, maybe someone's trying to get my attention. Maybe. And so I said, well, if it happens again, I'm going to ask what you want, what they want. And so it happened again. And I thought, well, here's my chance. And in the dream, what do you want from me? And everything stopped. All the noise stopped. It was just like this immediate halt. And Jesus popped up and he said, I want you to heal people. And all these flashes of different things, I saw me helping all these people in different ways. But waking up from that dream, I got excited, and then I got depressed, and I was like, there's no way I can help anyone. I'm living in a small town. I have, I'm going to have 2 little kids soon. Why are you bothering me with this? Like, it's not fair for you to tell me that I need to do something that's impossible for me to do right now. And so 4 years later, my kids were older. I was depressed and frustrated with life, a lot of anxiety, and a friend recommended I go to an energy healer. I went to one session, felt fantastic afterwards, but the second session, all of my chakras opened at once. The healer said, oh, this is what your energy system wants to do. I was like, oh, cool. What's a chakra? I had no idea even what a chakra was. So that's the level of understanding I had as to what was about to happen to me. And, then I felt like I was being electrocuted, I was burning from the inside out, screaming. And then after it was over, it was about 30 seconds of my body just completely tense and really terrifying feeling. And then afterwards, the healer said, well, all of your chakras open. I'm like, that tells me absolutely nothing. She said, well, all of Jesus' chakras are open. I'm like, great. So I'm Jesus now? Like, what are you saying? And so I went outside. I walked around in the grass for a few minutes as she instructed, went home, went to bed, thought I'd sleep it off, got up in the morning, felt worse, couldn't think straight, crying, body was super heavy. And then got my kids to school, got home, slept all day, went back to get them. And as I was walking towards the school, I started hearing all of these people's thoughts that were around, feeling all of their energy. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, now I can put words to it, but at the time it was just complete panic and terror. And my whole body felt like a sensitive tooth, and ran in, got them, went home. Went back the next day to these people, the healer, and I was like, you have to fix this. Whatever you did to me, you need to undo it. This is not okay. Like, I am not okay. And she asked her mentor about it and said, the mentor said, well, it's going to balance and close, and then she'll be fine. Life will be back to normal. And that's not what happened. I started hearing more voices, seeing more things. I was having things attack me in the night, in dreams. It was just really, really difficult. And then I had all my traumas from my childhood bubbling up because there was nothing to hold them down anymore. All that energy got broken loose. And so I was having these barrage of PTSD episodes that I couldn't control my emotions in. I was just having to get them out, and was picking up entities and energies from all over the place every time I'd leave the house. It was insanity. And we were in the middle of the house remodel. And my husband was like, why aren't you painting? I'm like, well, how far do you want me to get into that explanation? But he really was great during the whole thing. And it was difficult for him. It was difficult for my whole family. And then my younger son started having an awakening as well. So that was tricky. Ooh. To help him navigate that. And
how old was he?
He was 3.
And he was having the awakening?
He was starting to see things and hear voices, and he would wake up crying, and he would go up to his room and, be like, there's something in my room. It's, and he would start describing it. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So it was really interesting. My older son wasn't having as much of that, but he was having a little bit, but my younger son we're very, very linked, and he was having it as well. So I was having to help him as much as I possibly could. His wasn't as intense as mine, but we definitely went through that. And about 6 months. Yeah.
I would say all the while you're a Southern Baptist. Like, this is not in your continuum. It's like, this is supposed to be the devil, but what is this? I just want to put that framework in there where it's like, this is way out of your wheelhouse.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I was raised Southern Baptist. I had abandoned the church, but okay. I just kind of had gone out of that paradigm, but I didn't realize how much of my life and my thought process was really predicated on those beliefs that I had from, that I was being taught from the time I was 3 years old. But everything I was being shown was pretty much everything was just contraindicating my core beliefs that my whole life was built on. So my whole life was unraveling, the whole thing, from like existential crisis combined with everything else. And it was complete chaos every single day to just exist, basically. So that was having to be unraveled, and I was having to really form new core beliefs in myself, which was really tricky. So, but about 6 months in, I was like, well, I've got this down. I'll go to the grocery store, purge all the stuff I pick up from people, come home, do that again, go back and get my kids, come home, purge the energy again. It's just like, I was like, okay, I can deal with this. Like I can manage. And then I had 3 angels show up in my living room, and 6 months in and be like, oh, we're going to teach you how to heal people. No, you have the wrong address. Nope, not doing this. I'm too busy. I got too much on my plate. I'm a mess. Who's gonna believe that angels showed up in my living room? Number one. Number two, that I could help them at all. And so there was a lot of arguments that went on with that. And then I finally gave in. I said, well, fine, you guys teach me. I couldn't afford to go to heal, anybody that could teach me anything. And they didn't want me to go to anyone. They said, we're going to teach you how to do this. And I said, well, no one's going to believe angels taught me how to do anything. But I finally gave in. I'm like, well, what you're offering me is free. So sure, why not? And looking back, and it's funny.
Just wild. It's wild because other people would be like, oh my God, angels chose me to, you know what I mean? Like other people's framing of this would be so vastly different than your firsthand experience because we glamorize it. And at that point, I mean, people who are like, I want a Kundalini awakening. Linda always says, well, be careful what you ask for, because if it looks like this, I mean, you were so maxed out, like angels showing up. You're like, oh God, now there's angels in the living room. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not as if you were like, oh my God, you know what I mean?
No. I was more like, what do you want? Like, why are you bothering me? I have to, can I just do my laundry and have you not bother me? Because they would show, different beings, light beings and spirit guides would show up. And when they would talk to me, it wasn't like, hey, by the way, da, da, da. It was like this grand, like, oh, you're going to do this and this is going to happen. And that's going to, and I'm like, okay, like, can you just talk to me like a normal being? That would be great. So it was tricky because I just felt like I had so much on my plate and I was such a mess. I'm like, how can I help anyone? And then the fear that I was going to hurt someone if I did do energy work. I'm like, I don't want to hurt anyone. There was a big fear that I had of hurting someone with it. And I think that came partly from my core beliefs and past lives, probably too, of things that I had done before, and soul memory just says, wait, no, that's not a safe thing to do, kind of thing. So there was definitely a lot of pieces at play when I was having this experience, but people started showing up in my life in different ways. And I started working on them with the help of the angels and guides. And so that was about 16 years ago that happened. And I've been doing it ever since.
And that was Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, and Archangel Steve. We don't know who the third one was.
Yeah.
Steve Real.
Yeah, now I'm hearing Uriel, but I honestly don't. I know Michael was there for sure, and then the other one. It's interesting because I'm like, what did they tell me last time? I feel like they change their story sometimes, and I'm like, well, energy's all the same, so who knows? But it was an interesting experience. But they just taught me. They started teaching me. I had a group of guides that came in. Kind of orientation guides to help me start to navigate things. And then as I went through the years, the guides changed as I was taught different things and had different experiences. So that was interesting too, to realize that, because people say, oh, I have a guardian angel, and they just think they stick around for your whole life. And sometimes they do, but sometimes it seems that they change, they really, it just depends. It depends on the person, nothing's absolute, especially in energy.
Yeah,
special energy. So
okay, that was amazing download of your experience in a nutshell. Also, of course, you should all know that we have Amanda's link below, and she has an amazing book where she talks about her journey, but also gives everyone practical tips called 5 Minutes to Happiness. Is that right?
It's Feel Better in 5 Minutes.
Feel better. I apologize. Feel Better in 5 Minutes.
No worries.
Miss Linda, Miss Angela, do you want to ask questions before I get into the next bit that I'm so eager to get into?
I just want to say I can relate to you want me to do what? And the very practical of that's free. So, all right. Whatever.
I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah, all right. I don't know how many times I've looked up and gone, all right.
I know. It's like, does this mean you're going to leave me alone? Perfect. Okay, I'll do this. Just stop bothering me. Honestly, that's where I came from a lot of times. It's like another child, like, stop, just be quiet. What do you want me to do? Okay, fine. So, not the attitude a lot of people take, I guess. And I don't know,
well, a lot of people didn't get their chakras blown out in 30 seconds. So,
right. I can't imagine how you went through that, because even my own, I thought I was losing my mind. With each new step and having new abilities, it was like, all right, am I really hearing voices? Am I real?
Exactly.
Are they in my head? Are they, and trying to figure it out.
Exactly. What side are you talking to? It's all one and the same, really, but it's like, you don't necessarily want to play in the dirt with demons, or dark things, or, it's like, you try not to, but it's the discernment and the voices and hearing things and the energy and being able to sense the nuances between the difference between, the angels and, all the other pieces. It's a lot, you don't realize it until you get into it, how complicated it really is. But
yeah, I imagine it's a trial by fire in terms of, it's like part of your initiation is your discernment. Like, oh, that was not an angel of light. That was someone disguised as an angel of light. And that was part of my initiation is I have to own those abilities. I have to be the one to discern. No one can spoon feed that to me, as frustrating as it is, but I have to be the one to embody it.
Yes, it's very true. The discernment is definitely a big part of going through it, for sure. And it's tricky. You get tricked sometimes and you're like, are you kidding? What? So I had several of those instances that were that way. And every now and then it still happens, but it's rare now, but every now and then, if my vibration gets low, if I'm stressed or something like that, things like that can still happen. So, it's interesting to.
That's good for us to know. Miss Angela, hop in.
Yeah, I think this is so fascinating because in this book that I'm reading, Barbara talks about how at certain ages we're primed for that Kundalini movement, that shift to come. And 30 is that age where Saturn returns. And so you're like primed for that to happen. And those chakras open and they go to that Kundalini rises to the next level that's ready for being addressed, for the traumas to be addressed. And that's what kind of happened for you. It's so like in line with this book, like it's so in line. And it would be so great if most of us were more educated in this regard, because it's part of our evolutionary process. Saturn returns at age 30, then by age 38 to 44, there's another awakening. And then there's another one at age 50 and then 84. There are points, there are documented points where we are in a position to receive this and use it. And it's to our advantage to be aware of it so that we can take most advantage of it and use it for our evolutionary enlightenment. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well,
awesome.
I'm sorry, let's hop on that, because Amanda told me in the pre-show chat that she's experiencing a second awakening through her ascendant sign. And I was like, I had never heard of this before, but empathically, I could feel what she was talking about. And I was like, oh my God, what is that like? And so if you would give us a rundown of that, like both your resistance and your realizations and what this means to have a second awakening through your ascendant sign. What's your birth sign?
My birth sign is in Vedic astrology, it's Capricorn. In Western astrology, it's Aquarius. So I'm February 3rd. So I'm right on kind of the cusp, which I didn't even know I was a different sign in Vedic astrology until probably 8 years ago, something like that. So it really that shifted my identity a little bit, because I never completely resonated with Aquarius in my mind. And so I was like, this isn't quite right. Like something's off about this. And then when the astrologer told me that, I went, oh yeah. And so now my ascendant is Leo, and I'm starting to see that transition and waking up. And it's been interesting. There are definitely similarities between the original awakening and now, I'm saying dissonance, but it's like the gap in reality between your inner world and your outer world it's like the inner world feels like I'm already at a different point than the outer world is reflecting. So I find myself preparing, I'm like, locking down my schedule for next year. I'm like, I'm only doing calls and stuff on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are going to be for creation time, and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, I'm preparing for the next phase of my life that I've been told about. But it's I'm unsettled a lot, there's this unsettled feeling, but I have a lot more awareness of what's going on. Thank goodness. But there's definitely those elements that play, even the being, the discernment, there's like a whole nother level of discernment with this ascendant awakening than there was in my original awakening. So it's been interesting to relive some of that stuff, but with a different perspective.
Can you give us some experiences of that just so we can ground it a little bit more? Because it's very theoretical. Like, how does your Leo aspect going through awakening show up? Are you having, like, I know that you're going to be challenged to take up more space and have more light on you. And that's part of the resistance is like, because that's, okay, big, but not that big, so that's part of it, is obviously getting you prepared to have more attention for your service. But what are you experiencing in terms of that Leo part of you kicking on and being like, oh, what's going on? What would you say?
Well, I would say there was a catalyst. I came into contact with the person that was the catalyst for it awakening. So, definitely not the intention of me or this other person, but they're very much in the limelight. And so as my energy came into contact with their energy and I was working with them and we're having conversations and different things like that, I felt it starting to happen. And in my astrology, things are supposed to get bigger in the next 3 or 4 years, and more limelight and things like that. So as that happens, I think my Leo was like, okay, showtime, it's just like, it got tapped on the shoulder and it's like, okay, we're going to wake up now. So there definitely was a human catalyst element along with energetic, in that, that's never without that case, but it was really a human catalyst that kind of set in motion. I'd say I've done a lot of podcasts since the middle of September. And I think that was just the precursor to, because this person found me on one of the podcasts that I had done online and just contacted me out of the blue. And then that whole process begun. And I didn't recognize it at first, but as it started to happen, my guides came and told me, like, your ascendant's waking up. I'm like, my what is doing what? And so then I've been doing a lot of salt baths and a lot of energy work. There's been a lot of really deep karmic work that has come up for me around being in the limelight and having a following and different things like that. So there's definitely been some work around that to let go of old structures, old ego structures, old soul memory, that kind of thing. So it's been a process of really unraveling a lot of things that I'd always feared. I didn't ever want my ego to get in the way and me become like a terrible person to anyone. That was a concern of mine. I'm like, I don't want to become this horrible person. A lot of times you don't even imagine or understand that it's happening until you reflect and someone points it out and you're like, oh gosh, that's ugly. Oh, I don't really want to be in that. And everything's a journey, but that's that letting go of that fear and all of those ideas of what that looks like, what the perception of that looks like versus what it actually looks like in your life. So it's been interesting to go through that process.
Yeah, and no judgments against Leos, but it is one of those things where it's like I lived as a triple Leo, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. But like it is that thing of, Leos that's one of their gifts is like they can own a stage and a heartbeat, right? And so for those of us who are especially empathic and we're like, oh gosh, I never want to be that jerk that way that person was to me. And so there's a fear of like since Leo is like, I can take all the space and talk about me for hours, it's like, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's our judgment.
Right.
But it's like, oh no, I don't want to be that person, because we have this, belief about what that is and what that looks like in the world.
Exactly. And so definitely been going through discernment on that, and just being mindful. I tell my husband, I'm like, okay, if I start being a jerk, let me know. He's like, he just laughs. He's like, you're fine. You're fine. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just always want to be mindful of that in my life, because I always want to give space to other people, and, and have that give and take in conversations and energy and all of that, versus just taking up all the space. Cause that just doesn't feel good to anyone, really. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey in just tiptoeing through that. But then I have energy pushing me like a tsunami through it. And I'm like, wait. There's some days that I'm like, hang on. And I went to my energy healer the other day. He was so funny. He goes, you're floating down a river and you keep putting your feet down. Stop it. You got a life jacket on. Just look around at the mountains, enjoy the ride. He's like, you're behind right now. You got to just let go. And I'm like, okay. So just in trusting, really trusting the journey and knowing that it's the right one and you're on the right path. So that's always the part of everything when you're going through these is just knowing that this is happening for a reason, and it's your correct path, obviously. And you just navigate it the best you can. So.
And to let go of that control. God help us all, let go of the control. Miss Linda, did you want to hop in?
We were all talking about appreciating the fear that comes up about doing harm to someone. I remember I had this huge catwalk work me through that of the fear. So there's a lot of conversation on the side about, the ego and fear and letting go. And one of the questions that I had was your discernment. You've said discernment many times. Your discernment on things that are not there for your highest good. What tips do you have for people?
That's a really good question. So, when you're in the kind of spiritual space, when you become audiovoyant, when you're clairvoyant, and it's kind of like your front door is open to the entire world, energetically, spiritually, all these different realms, you get a lot of salesmen in that space, coming and knocking on your door, trying to sell you something. And you have to know who to say yes to, who to say no to. And it's not always 100% easy to tell. I would say over time, you can feel the difference in the energy. Sometimes it's extremely subtle, and sometimes they're very good at cloaking themselves. They'll come in and say, oh, we can help you with that. Oh, you're cooking that. Oh, if you add this spice, it's perfect. Oh, you spilled something on the floor. Use this to clean it up. I had this exact conversation for 3 days when I was going through my awakening in this process. And I had this being that started talking to me, and I was like, oh, what's your name? And and I was going through all of this stuff. And then I went to my energy healer, and on my way there, it started telling me to kill her. And I was like, oh, I don't think you're a good thing. I think you're right. Are you a light? No. I'm like, oh no. And then I just started panicking. I was like, oh, how could I be so stupid? No. And I just went into space, and then I underwent this whole release of this entity, because it had come into my field and just settled in. And it was a process to get it out. Don't have time to go into the whole story right now, but it was a lot. And it had been with me a really long time, but it had been hanging out and not showing its head until I underwent this awakening process. So, but I could feel the difference now. When I feel energies like that, I would say 97% of the time I'm pretty spot on and going, I don't think that's right. What they say is just a little bit off, or what I feel from them is just a little bit off, and I say, are you feeling light? No. Okay. Well, you need to go. And then just say, you need to leave. You're not in my best and highest good. You need to leave. And then if you are planning on contacting like angels or, your spirit guides or anything, I always say, of the highest light and my best and highest good. And then tapping into that and really setting the intention for that energy to come in. And it helps to push those other pieces out of the way. So that's one way you can do it. Or contact an angel directly. Like if you're going to channel an angel, say, okay, I want to talk to Archangel Michael in my best and highest good, the Archangel Michael, and really just open that particular channel up to talk to that angel. If you have a fear about, something else getting in the way, but all of it's part of your journey. And I think that's a really important thing to understand as well is, it's not that you did anything wrong. It's just that you're learning. So I think that's important for people to know too. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just, you just close the door on that salesman. That's it.
Yeah, I think an important piece to add here is that the prerequisite is getting in the heart space. Because if you get in the heart space first, then that alleviates any concern for any doubt for anything else that may come, because you're operating from the space of the heart, and what will come is of love. You're in that space of connectedness. So that's the very first thing I would say anybody who wants to make any connection with spirit should do first, because energy is vibrated at any level, at every level, any and every level, and it will meet you wherever you are. So if you open yourself up at any level, energy is going to meet you there. But getting in the space of the heart first is the critical piece.
That's a really, really good tip for sure. That's definitely something that it was really key and very helpful, because love vibrates at, that higher frequency, so whatever you open yourself up, because we have all these traumas and you've got all these different vibrational levels whenever you open yourself up. And I was carrying a lot of trauma around when I first opened up. And so there was a lot of stuff that could get to me at these lower levels because I had a lot of this energy that I had held on to for so long. And it happens less and less now that I've let a lot of that stuff go. And I have a client who I helped her facilitate an awakening, this co-creation thing that we did with her chakras. And she's a very light being, very, she had let go of a lot of traumas, done a lot of work already. So her experience was very different. When she had her Kundalini awakening, it was much gentler. She went into a blissful place, had a blissful state. She did have some traumas come up, but it was very much more in the heart space. She didn't have a lot of the kinds of experiences that I had. So when you have a Kundalini awakening, everyone's is different. It just depends on what your journey is meant to be, and really how aligned your chakras are, how much of an awareness you have of energy, and how much in the heart space that you are and you operate. That makes a big difference for sure.
Huge. Well, I want to move into talking about heart space being empathic, because I know that was when all your chakras came on. And it's not just psychic, it's also empathy. You're not just seeing and hearing, but you're feeling. And I think that, I've not had a Kundalini awakening like that. I've had some Kundalini stuff, but I would imagine that the emotional overwhelm has to be just as, if not more powerful than the other visual and auditory, because people's hanging on or feeling people's density has to be crazy. So I wanted to speak about this with I wrote a note, which I now don't understand. Energetic root to everything. Oh, that there's an energetic root to everything, that all of our emotions have an energetic root to them. Does that, would you speak to that and kind of start guiding us through this conversation about our emotions? Because I know as an empath, my thing is to put my guts on the inside of my body, which is so hard for me. I'm just so used to having it on the outside. So I really want other empaths to learn from your wisdom.
Right. So, in my experience, when I was having all these things happen, my heart chakra actually, it's interesting. You're speaking to, the heart being open and being in the heart space. For me, when I had an awakening, my heart was pretty closed because that didn't feel safe. I had developed my emotional chakra really, really heavily. And so that's where I did everything from, and for a long time. And so over time, I've worked on my heart space. I've been married for 8 years to somebody now that's extremely heart-centered being. And so I've learned that over the past 8 years or so to really, really have that open heart. So that's been wonderful. But as far as energetic roots, a lot of us walk around and we feel anxiety all the time. That's kind of our go-to emotion, or depression or frustration, or there's something we wake up in the morning, we just feel, we just kind of from the outset, a lot of us. And that's just on the surface, but there's a root to that. These emotions are linked to old traumas and experiences, and it can be even past life stuff or stuff that's been passed down ancestrally. But a lot of it is traumas that have occurred in our own lifetime. So whenever you feel those things, what I encourage people to do just to start the process of releasing that deeper stuff is saying, I choose to release this emotion. You can name it or not, if you're not quite sure what it is, but you're feeling it, and just say, I choose to release this emotion, anything that's attached to, and just envision it bubbling up and just coming out of you. And when you say whatever it's attached to as well, then you're digging just a little bit deeper every single time. So when you do, after I would say 2-3 weeks of doing that, and then starting to dig deeper, there's techniques in the book to teach you how to dig deeper into those traumatic places. A lot of the emotional charge has been taken out. So you're not reliving that experience. You're not going into a PTSD state of reliving that. You're tapping in and you're saying, okay, what's this experience about? What's this emotion linked to? And you'll get a feeling or a memory pop up. And then you say, okay, I choose to release all of that. And then your memory will go on to the next thing, because everything's linked in this energetic network. So, and it's never linked in ways that very seldom is it linked in ways that we find as logical, because the subconscious and energy system is not necessarily logical, right? Energetically, things are linked in ways that we don't understand why they're linked that way. But there's a rhyme and a reason. It's just not something that's apparent to us. So just following down that trail and just keep releasing on those different situations and patterns, and it will start pulling those out on a deeper level, so that our base emotion, maybe it switches from anxiety to calm, that kind of thing, or anger to love, it can start to shift over time as we start to really dig in deeper and get to these emotional roots of where these go-to emotions that we have come from.
I'd like to hear about how, and ladies, feel free to interrupt me if you want to pop in. I'm so excited to talk about this stuff. I'd like to hear about how emotions are grouped together and traumas are grouped together, because I think people need to understand that. I will say, just to give an example, I don't like to share too much of myself a lot of times, but I have an abandonment theme that is very super strong. Linda has seen some of my blackest days when I was working through that, or when it was just beating the crap out of me. But I have found that as I've worked with it and as I've surrendered to it, almost like that's where things have taken me over, where it's like, you're going to grieve abandonment now. And it was like, memories popping up, and it was like, oh, it's here. Like, it's thematic, and I can feel it through lifetimes. I can feel it through this lifetime, but it's connected to other things. And I'm wondering if you could speak some wisdom to that in terms of what people might be experiencing when they go through their cleansing and awakening.
Sure. So whenever you have an experience of whatever it is, we'll go through this first, and then we'll talk about structures, because that's a little bit different, but it definitely plays into this. So whenever you have an experience, just the easy experience I can say is from the book, right? That I've got is this little boy was jumped on by a dog when he was 3 years old. And the experience of that was very traumatic for him. Okay, he's 3 years old. The dog was just jumped on him and licked him, right? Wasn't trying to hurt him. But that creates a trauma bucket. Like, that was traumatic for him. But what people don't understand a lot of times, and you're not conscious of, because the event is all you're looking at, right? Or if you're in a car accident, whatever it is, it's like, I was in a car accident. But what you don't realize is everything that was occurring in that day around you, in your environment, that was going through your mind, whatever it was, is lumped into that same trauma bucket. So for the little boy in the book, he was wearing a red t-shirt and overalls. The carpet was green in the room. Sesame Street was on TV. He was holding a chocolate chip cookie. Someone had said something to him. So all of those things, when he was jumped on by that dog, were imprinted inside that trauma bucket. So then it goes into talking about, when he was 5 years old, he was afraid to go into a bathroom because there was a green bath mat on the floor, and he was afraid it was going to get him, and so he wet his pants, and then he had embarrassment on top of the green carpet and on top of the being jumped on by a dog. And so it's like this whole thing, right? And so when he started to release on that, all these memories were linked together, and he didn't remember that the carpet was green in the room, that when he fell down, when the dog jumped on him, he didn't remember that Sesame Street was on TV. He didn't remember he's holding a chocolate chip cookie. He didn't remember he was wearing a red shirt. But all those things, he's like, I refuse to wear a red shirt. All those things were in that same trauma bucket. So it's in our subconscious mind that way. So it's very interesting how all of that stuff gets linked together, and then trauma gets built on top of trauma, so it's all wound together in this giant ball of stuff. So when we start to unleash that piece, when he started to work on, I choose to release, everything in the trauma of being jumped on by a dog and anything that's attached to, then he was thinking of, when he had hives in 3rd grade, when he ate chocolate and he had to go to the nurse, and he was embarrassed and sad that he missed the party at school because he developed a chocolate allergy from the trauma of being jumped on by a dog because he was eating the cookie. It's like, it's just this ball of stuff, this huge ball of stuff. And so when you're going through these traumas and starting to release these things, it's all linked together, and you just have to not judge it, when you're going through the process of letting that go. And I've seen that I've done EMDR myself. I've done different kinds of releasing things. And it's, even if however you're working on it, your subconscious is just really wired so interestingly, because energetically, vibrationally, it's coming from the same place. So, a red shirt or being jumped on by a dog is the same thing. Your body interprets it in the same way.
Yeah, I want to jump in.
Please.
So yeah, this is so interesting and so cool, because it's all linked to one specific source, one specific incident. And that incident most times is given or established based on the perspective of that immature mind at the time.
Right.
If that makes sense. Right.
Yes.
And that's something that's held and built upon. But the way of like alleviating that across incarnations that may be affected by that single point is to go back and reframe it. So go back and re-see it from a perspective of love, because now you understand love. You're in a better position to know what love is and how love plays out. You understand the roles that one comes into an incarnation to play, and how the pieces in that particular situation come together to help you see yourself in a different way. And although you may not have been able to see yourself in that way at the time, because at that time you possessed an immature mind that wasn't awakened to all things, you do now. And so when you grasp that and you overlay that, you reframe that situation from a perspective of love, at that point, you are able to release it across all space and time. That's how you go back and rewrite history. That's the essence of rewriting your history. And it affects and it plays in every aspect that may have hinged on that one particular trauma, and that trauma is released. I've seen this play out recently. I've learned to do this, and I've seen shifts like instantly, shifts like overnight. Being able to go back and see it from a perspective of love versus as a victim or in any way that doesn't appeal to my highest good and evolution as a soul. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's very true. The whole thing of viewing it as, a 3-year-old child, one of the things I talk about is like, as these experiences, as he sees a big dog when he's older, he has the same reaction because it's all his energy system in his mind groups about, oh no, the dog's going to hurt you. He's reacting as that 3-year-old. So when you go back and work on that trauma, when you reframe it, everything from that starts to shift and change. And so exactly what you're saying, and viewing it from a place of love, I love that because it's so true. I actually went through something a couple of days ago with the whole like karmic thing with this old like past life, dynamic that I had with someone, and I was really struggling with it. And once I let that go, I woke up the next morning and I felt just 100% better. It was great. My husband's like, oh my gosh, I'm back to normal. Yay. I was really struggling with it. It's amazing when it comes up and it's ready to release. If you have the tools to do it.
Yes. Yeah. This is a whole importance of working with the inner child. This is what it means to work with that inner child, to help the child see life from the perspective of an enlightened or more awakened being, from a more awakened perspective. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You grow up and respect that particular dynamic, so you can see it as an adult versus a child perspective. And that happens a lot with abandonment, especially. I mean, you can have abandonment in the womb, and that's a tricky construct. It's a tricky structure. And one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is energetically, when I'm working with people and they say, I've released on this and I've released on this and I've released on my abandonment and I've released on my whatever they've got going on. And I say, well, the energy of the structure is still there. It's like a scaffolding. So really removing that at that point is really important, because any new energy that comes in that you're trying to assimilate is trying to go back on that old structure. So pulling out the structure. Yeah. So that's what I was going to tell you, going in and doing work to pull out the structure. I like to envision cranes coming in and just taking it and, dropping it off somewhere else. You can transmute it with love or whatever you want to do. But the structure itself needs to be removed. Yeah. So that's a big thing too, that people aren't aware of sometimes that need to be done. So that's a big one. If anybody's struggling with, they're like, I've released on this for years and I'm so frustrated, I can't seem to get rid of it. It's because that old structure is in there. So that needs to be taken out. Once that gets taken out, then the space of the structure taken up, all the new energy, all the love energy or whatever you're guided to replace that with, they're just divine light in general can come in and fill that space and form a new structure so that you can move forward in your next step of your process, your awakened process or evolution or whatever you want to call it. So it's a really,
that's the essence of reframing. That's what it is.
And did the archangels teach you? Did the archangels teach you about the structure piece? Because that's new to me.
Yeah, it's one of the things that they taught me. Yeah. And I think, and I can't remember exactly when that information came in, but it's reframing. I mean, really, I didn't even think about it in that respect, but it's literally reframing.
It's energetic reframing, because you're taking the frame, which is an energy, and shift.
Everything is energy. Everything is energy. Yeah.
Everything.
In a good way.
But it really makes a big difference. I've had a lot of abandonment stuff too, so I can relate to what you're going through. And really, from what I've seen with people, is the abandonment structure is the trickiest one to deal with, because it shows up in so many different ways. And trauma structures are in general, but abandonment structure seems to be, it's the sneaky one, because you push people away. You can create drama in your life around different things, or trying to hold on to somebody too tight, and that pushes them away, because you're afraid of the abandonment, and you create it from that place. And it's, it's really interesting how we do that. And that has to do, with love and all those different things. But abandonment seems to be, and in my experience, kind of the trickiest one that will sneak up on you that you don't even realize.
It feels like it's a separate personality almost. And it's like, I have to keep an eye open, because it will sneak back in. Because I've been going through this really intensely lately. And it's like, and my guides are like, okay, yep, you kind of failed that one, but that's okay, because it's going to come back around again. Like, you're not going to be able to get away from it. You're going to have to keep facing it. And it's almost like a second personality that's trying desperately to keep me safe by destroying everything. And it's just like, oh my God, okay, yeah. So can we stop now?
It's tricky. Well, try the structures, try going at it from a structure perspective, and like reframing as well. It's like taking the structures out and allowing new energy to come in and fill the space that feels like love and support, that's love and support versus abandonment.
I may have to be reaching out to somebody who's a professional in this and has been taught by angels, so I know they know what they're doing. Miss Amanda, or not Amanda, I'm sorry, Miss Linda, did you want to hop in?
I love the words that you're giving that, because I've started really having a lot of people with deep trauma attracted to me for working with them. And I've realized that's what I'm doing, but I didn't have any words for it. Like I just had to say, this seems above my pay grade, but okay, we will. I don't know. We'll try this, and I will accept that the tools are going to come in. And that's what's been happening, is we have been doing that. And it's just, I didn't have words for it. So thank you. Yeah, that's so cool. And I appreciate how you're talking about replacing that. You know, I talk about the light coming back in to fill that void, releasing that.
You definitely need to be intentional about what comes in and fills the space after the fact. You don't want to just take out the structure and then let any old Oreo cookie come in and just fill it up with junk food. You don't want to replace it with junk food. You want to replace it with intentional, people are like, what do you put in this space? I'm like, you just divine essence, divine white light, and it will transmute into what it's supposed to be, rather than setting a direct intention, unless you're guided to do a direct intention for a specific structure or type of energy. I just tell people, if you want to play it safe, just say, I choose to welcome in divine white light or divine essence or pure divine essence to fill that space. And then your energy system will make, it's like a stem cell, energetic stem cell, right? It will form what it needs to form from that.
Good Lord, that's a great analogy. And also shout out to stem cells. We have so much to learn. So would you speak about money and love and how those are connected, and how the wounds, how whatever wounds in one area impact, like if you have love wounds, it impacts your money experience, your money wounds impact your love experience. Would you educate us on that?
Sure. So I'll talk about it a little bit, and then I'll tell a little anecdotal story that I had an experience of a couple of weeks ago that was really fascinating. So love and money are often wound together in this world. If you talk to anyone, I would say most people that come to me, love and money are the two things. They want a healthy relationship, and they want really abundance is what they're looking for. We group it in the guise of money, because money is safety, money is security, money is what we want in life, right? Oh, well, if I have money, then we have this if-then thought process of, if I have money, then I'll have happiness. If I have money, then I can buy a house. If I have money, that, and so we lump safety and security in. Really, that's the guys that's what we're looking for. And love is the same thing: safety and security, wholeness. We're looking for the same thing. It's very similar energy. So what happens in energy systems, what I've seen, and I've worked with a lot of people that have this, is they think, well, if I have money, then someone will love me, or it's all wound together. So what happens is they get wrapped around each other in the energy system. It's like this, tight thing that's wound together, and it makes it hard to process. So one of the things that I encourage for people, that if you're really struggling with love and money, or maybe you've attracted people in your life that only feel like, oh, they just want me for the money, or I have to have money to be secure, whatever it is, consciously go through, like you can do it in a meditation or whatever kind of energy work you want to do, and unwind the two of those things. Literally just unwind it in your mind and separate the two, and then say, I choose for these energies to be whole and complete within themselves. And then you can go into the energy of love and the energy of money separately, and go through the trauma structures that are there as well. And just say, I ask my energy system sometimes, I'm like, please show me the root trauma of this. Of money for me. Please show me the root trauma of love for me. And love and money are really interesting too, because love, we say it with love, but it also occurs with money too, is we develop thought processes about these two things as we move through life, but it starts very, very young. If our parents are struggling with money or love, everyone has their own thought process of love and own thought process of money. So, as a child, the first people that are supposed to show us love and unconditional acceptance and all of that are our parents. But if love to them is control and anger and abuse and manipulation and all of these things, if that's what love is to them, if that's how they show love, then that's what we think love is as children, because we're soaking everything up as truth. So as we go through life, we're like, I just want a loving relationship. Well, our energy system was, love is manipulation, control. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. And that's where your blind spots are, because that's where the trauma is. So you have to go into those spaces and really start to clear out that energy so that you can actually get to a pure and divine interpretation of love for yourself. And money is the same. How many people out there, money is the root of all evil? How many have heard your parents say that? Or, and it's like, okay, well, wait, if it's evil, then I can't have it, but I really want it because I really want to buy that car, or that house, or I want a security, or, and so it's this push pull. You have this structure in there that it just keeps hitting against. It's a wall. So going in and really starting to remove those structures is really key around, but unraveling them first is in being able to see them as two separate, unique entities is important, even though the energy is extremely similar.
And did you have an experience from 2 weeks ago about this?
I did. Okay. So I went to Asheville, North Carolina, and which I loved, by the way, huge fan. And we went through the Biltmore while we were there. And, it's this giant estate. The Vanderbilts lived there. They built this amazing home, and they were very altruistic with their staff. They paid New York wages in the middle of North Carolina. I mean, they were very kind people. I mean, there were, the people who built the house and all of that. And while I was in there, one of them started talking to me. And I was like, okay, what do you want? And he said, I need you to understand money from a different perspective. He said, love and money is the same energy, but it gets misconstrued. He said, if you are purely in the energy of wealth, he goes, everything's an energy, and love and money are actually the same, but they get distorted in our world. He goes, but if you can go back to a source of love and giving and all of that, he goes, money will come from that. And that's where pure abundance is. He said, so it's actually the same energy, but in our world, it gets twisted and distorted, just as love gets twisted and distorted. He's like, but if you can go back to the pure source of love, he said, that's where abundance lies, and money's in there. So it's really all of the same energy. He goes, but if you can understand that and get back to love, then abundance comes from that. So it was really kind of an interesting thought process and exercise to go through, and really energetically seeing that as the same energy, and it's all abundance, that love is everything, really. So it's all the same energy, which is something you wouldn't think, but that was the experience I had that was pretty fascinating.
And what's fascinating is that we can think these things and be like, oh yeah, I understand that. But then there's a different kinesthetic understanding. There's a different soul level getting it versus, oh yeah, that makes sense. Love is everything. Love is money. Love it, oh, I get it. But then to experience it on a cellular level is where the real shift is at.
It's very much that. And really, if you can start by unwinding the two things and getting to the core of those true essence pieces and then rebuilding from there, it's easier said than done, honestly. But it's definitely a process just to start going down that road of unwinding your traumas from those two and belief structures from those two things is really a good start.
Yeah, I'll say for me, my imprint of love was either abandonment or being smothered. So it was we just won't do love because that means that either You know what I mean? It's pain either way. Either I'm smothered or anyway. So I just want, it's like, it's interesting, everyone to clock what your parents taught you what love was, because that is also going to impact your relationship with abundance, with oneness.
Right.
We have got a precious 6 minutes left with Amanda. Angela, hop in.
Yeah, I just want to say it's such a catch-22, right? Because as a child, you're born coming from love. You already are love. You are that in every way, but you are conditioned to believe that love lies outside of you by what you see. So it's so critical that we as parents especially learn that we are love, to embrace what we are as our base nature, right? And understand that everything is energy. Love is energy, money is energy, and allowing that to flow and allowing that to just be a state of being, the way we operate, right? And then it becomes the way everybody is at some point. I believe that it'll come at some point, so that when children are born into the world, they aren't conditioned out of that natural state of beingness. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And when the world gets to that place, it'll be interesting to see what's going on to get us there, right? I feel like we're going through the trenches, right? We're
right
now to get to the other side. So it's an interesting thing. But yeah, no, I agree. That's beautiful, and I think that's definitely very, very true.
Yeah.
Can you speak real quickly to, and if it makes sense, how do empaths get their guts on the inside of their body and not wear them on the outside of their body?
Oh, well, that's a little bit tricky.
Maybe.
You know, some of it comes from, well, a lot of it comes from boundaries and being able to have strong boundaries. The more you work on your traumas, actually, the easier it is to have healthy boundaries with others and energetically and in relationships in the world. So that's definitely a big key to creating healthy boundaries that are permeable enough to function in society and have healthy relationships, but also not to the point where people are walking all over you and taking advantage of you. So that's definitely a big part of it. The more you release on that, the less negative and low vibration energy you're going to pick up. The more you're in love, the less of that negative and or just low vibration energy you're going to pick up from other people. So working on your traumas is the absolute best thing you can do. And then just, you know, if you go into a situation that you know is going to be contentious, just envisioning a bubble around yourself. One of my friends gave me the my energy work friends, he said, just imagine it's Teflon, everything slides off, or rubber. He's like, whatever, you know, bunk, it's just going to bounce off of you. It's not going to stick, you know, and will some get through? Yeah, probably. But it's going to really help if you just envision that bubble around you if you're going into a situation that's tough. But working on those inner traumas is going to help you be more protected.
Perfect. Did you want to say something, Linda, before we go into closing?
I was just typing that I've seen and experienced as empaths that there's definitely a desire, not a desire, but a tendency to be codependent.
Yes.
And it's part of the healing process of, you know, being able to separate that out and pull it out and pull back your energy. And as my friend would say, your stuff, my stuff, your stuff, my stuff.
Exactly. And the codependency comes from, I mean, that can come if you have abandonment structures and you don't want to be abandoned and you want to be needed. Like if you have a need to be needed, a lot of times that's where the codependent piece comes from. Or you see someone that's broken and hurting and you're like, oh, I want to fix that. And, you know, a lot of times that person's a narcissist, which is a super interesting dynamic. And, you know, we don't have time to get into that, but that's a whole another thing. And then they're, you know, that person is taking from you. We tend to get around takers because we're giving so much. So it's definitely a mindfulness that occurs that we kind of have to put our energetic foot down and out of love and for ourselves and for the other person, because codependency is not healthy for either person. So it's definitely something that happens a lot with empathic people, codependency.
Yeah, I help my daughter with this because she's very empathic as well too. And she's kind of coming into that as a young person. But what I tell her is to make sure she gets in the heart. So taking that breath to get into the space of the heart and then asking the question, is this mine? Is this energy? Is it what I'm feeling? Is it mine? It's so simple, but it helps a lot just to ask, is it mine? Is it mine? Yeah.
Yes.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
You just got to
Yes.
remember
And to have
do that.
self-empathy,
Yes.
self-empathy through it,
Right.
because then you can pull that energy into you and focusing back.
Right.
Give yourself back the love that you're trying to give so desperately to everybody else.
Right.
All right, I'm going to flip us into Brady Bunch view, what I call Brady Bunch view. So we can go ahead and wrap this up because we are at time. Linda, do you want to thank our beautiful people before we say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, of course I do. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again. Love you so much. See you in our Facebook group. If you haven't joined it, join it. Check out Amanda's links below. She's just a wealth of knowledge, and her book, and Angela as well. Just love you dearly. And Kat, you are the cat's meow. Thank you for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, so thank you, Miss Amanda. It's been an absolute joy. And if you need to hop off now, you can go ahead while we say our final goodbyes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you, and have a wonderful rest of your Saturday.
It was awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Bye.
Bye.
And then for everybody else, hang on for 1 second because I want to let you know that next week, well, who's our guest next week? It's Angela Anderson. So if you have been enjoying her popping in and giving these just like gems of wisdom, how did Angela get to be so wise? How is she so heart-centered? Where did she get to this place in her life where she's able to channel oneness? We're going to find out next week. We had an amazing pre-show talk yesterday that was just blowing my heart open. So I'm super excited about we get to spend our time with the lovely Angela and learn more. So with that, everyone, we love you. Please take care of yourself. There are planets in retrograde. There are photons pelting your being. There are all suns and moons going into eclipses. So it's a very intense time. So please, please, please take care of yourself. And we will see you next time. We love you all. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.